Even in 2021, when COVID was a pandemic, TB was killing more patients per year than COVID-19. 150 years ago, the disease was common in every section of the society. People used to treat consumption as something that eats your body but enhances your soul. Why did we invest so much in COVID-19 to solve it, right? Because it was affecting anyone and everyone, even the rich folks, which is not the case for TB. US has one radiologist per 10,000 people, right? India has one radiologist per 100,000 people. We are deployed in a country called Lesotho, where it's just one radiologist for the entire country. You're solving for something that is just not there, so there's no one to replace. AI plus radiologist is much better than AI as well as the radiologist.
Today at Intelligence Unscripted, I have the pleasure of introducing Qure.ai. So we have Mr. Modi here, Mr. Ankit Modi, I should clarify. And he's one of the co-founders of Qure. Qure.ai is doing something extraordinary. They're doing something extraordinary in three ways. One is they've been using fairly deep tech algorithms, and so they're doing some extraordinary AI work. Secondly, they are a startup based out of India, and they have touched 25 million lives in 100 countries. And lastly, they're doing the mission, and what they're doing in terms of saving lives using AI is phenomenal. So this is something we're going to get into. So welcome, Ankit.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
So would you like to tell us what Qure.ai do? And I see a very Shakespearean quote here, TB or not TB. So yeah, please expand.
Qure.ai's mission is to make healthcare more accessible, affordable, and timely for everyone. And we are using deep tech. We have been building deep tech algorithms before it was cool to build deep tech algorithms, so since last 8 years. And we are into processing radiology images like chest x-rays, CT scans, MRIs, and we use AI algorithms to interpret these scans and empower doctors to take decisions better. And in some cases, automated as well, like in TB screening that you mentioned. So we got approved by WHO in 2021, where WHO said that Qure's algorithm can be automatically used for TB screening in absence of a radiologist. And that's probably the only use case of AI in healthcare where it is fully automated, right, without a human in the loop. So that really sort of scaled things up for us. And we started deploying our TB use case on chest X-ray algorithm across various countries, right from Southeast Asia to Africa to South America. The next piece of the puzzle was to get lung cancer. Lung cancer is another area where we are very, very focused. And we partnered with AstraZeneca 3 years back, where AstraZeneca committed to screening 5 million patients through chest X-rays and Qure's algorithm, QXR, across the world. And we have touched 3.5 million scans last week through that.
And AstraZeneca is based out of Oxford,
US. Think so. I think their head office is in US, but we work with different AstraZeneca teams across the world. Okay. So AstraZeneca itself, that partnership has taken us to 30, 35 countries. And they're we are looking at all kinds of chest X-rays. So typically, if you suspect a person for a potential disease like lung cancer, you will go for a CT scan, right? With chest X-rays, these are so routine, right? If you go to a hospital with a cough or a pneumonia, the first thing they will do is do a chest X-ray. And that's where we saw an immense potential of incidental detection of certain diseases, right? So for example, what incidental detection means is that when you take a chest X-ray or you do any radiology imaging with a certain disease in mind, you are actually looking to find out that disease, right? So for example, if a car accident has happened and there is a small rib fracture, the doctor will order a chest X-ray. And the radiologist is typically, because they know that, there is an accident, they are looking for where that fracture is. And once they have found that out, they are satisfied with it, right? So it's called satisfaction of search error, which basically means that you have found out what you're looking for. Advantage is that it is on surveillance mode for every possible disease. So the same chest X-ray might also have a very small nodule that can become cancerous over the years, right? And maybe, the attention of the treating doctor or the radiologist is not towards that because it's an emergency situation, you have to treat the fracture. That's where we partnered with AstraZeneca, that there are sort of billions of X-rays being taken. And there's a huge potential to identify patients in stage 1 and stage 2 lung cancer, while when the symptoms show up in stage 3 or 4, it's quite late. And that partnership has been very, very successful, where we have actually shown that stage shift happening. Similarly, for tuberculosis, one way is to go towards TB screening programs, which we are doing. We have automated a lot of stuff there. But then we partnered with BMC in Mumbai Corporation, right? we installed QXR in 8 hospitals of BMC, and we said that we are going to process every chest X-ray in those hospitals. It doesn't matter whether it is coming from the tuberculosis department or the cardiology department or the oncology department. Any chest X-ray, we will put AI for on surveillance mode for tuberculosis. And we were able to show, and that paper also got published last month, we were able to show that the number of TB patients identified increased by 30%. So there are 30% more TB patients coming to the hospital for something else. Something else, and their TB would worsen. So there are two things happening over here. One, the patient is getting better earlier because you're detecting early. Two, for a communicable disease like TB, you are basically avoiding transmission of TB in their communities. So we did some calculations and we found out that if we implement that model across the country in every state, every district, we able to find 300,000 more TB patients annually and stop transmissions to 4.5 million patients annually just in India.
Just by doing this automatic screening.
Yeah,
how big is TB a problem in India? What is the scale of it?
So even in 2021, when COVID was like sort of a pandemic, TB was killing more patients per year than COVID-19.
My God.
Yeah. So it's
silent killer.
Yeah, it's a silent killer. It used to be called consumption as a disease, I think 150 years back. And it was a very romanticized disease, if you know, in the sense that consumptions means that, like, I mean, the disease consumes you from inside. The patient becomes really frail and like sort of your cheeks will like sort of go inside and like the eyes will go inside. And there was a lot of melancholy attached with this disease. And back, I would say 200, 150 years ago, the disease was common in every section of the society, be it rich or poor.
All around the world.
Yeah,
like this British novels where they would talk about this, some of these people.
Yeah. So even like, I mean, people used to treat consumption as something that eats your body, but enhances your soul. So a lot of artists, a lot of painters, a lot of writers, a lot of actors and models would like sort of treat TB as something that is making them artistically more nuanced or better, but physically like sort of weaker, right? And it was like sort of romanticized in that. Even today, like, I mean, if you look at like sort of modeling as an industry, the standards of models come from actually TB. Like, I mean, they have to be really frail or like sort of the cheeks have to be a certain way. And nobody, I mean, remembers that now. But then what happened was, like, I mean, we discovered that TB is caused by Mycobacterium bacillus. And then like it was identified that it is mostly because of like sort of sanitation. It can really be avoided if sanitation is improved. And it was obviously improved for the richer sections of the society. And then it got like sort of, I would say, termed as a disease for the really poor and the marginalized sections of the society. Why did we invest so much in COVID-19 to solve it, right? Because it was affecting anyone and everyone, even the rich folks, which is not the case with TB. And that's why, like, I mean, the investment is not as much or the attention is not as much, but it's equally important, right? So if you look at the countries and within countries, if you look at the areas which are susceptible to TB, it's very like sort of obvious that, I mean, the disease has, I mean, not a disease, I would say, we have outgrown TB by being in a certain section of the society while the others haven't. And like sort of technologies like AI can play a great equalizer over there.
It's a phenomenal story. So you talked about lung cancer, you talked about TB. You had briefly mentioned stroke.
Yeah. Stroke is also like, I mean, one care area. So this was the second product or second modality, I would say, on head CT scans that we came up with. It was basically about treating patients. So once a stroke happens, right, you have 6 hours to decide, basically treat the patient. So you can do a thrombolysis, which is basically like sort of you insert something inside the body that like sort of diffuses that stroke, or then you can do a mechanical thrombectomy. So both of these things have to be done within 6 hours. Now what happens is that stroke is happening, say, to a patient where and stroke treatment is not something you would find in a primary or a secondary care hospital, right? It's like sort of the really best of the best hospitals. Now imagine like there is a tertiary care center in and around Bangalore, and then there's a stroke patient who has just gotten stroke maybe 50 kilometers away in a small village, right? Over there, like, I mean, once the stroke has happened, they will go to a primary care center because they don't know it's stroke, and a head CT scan would be done, and they will try to like sort of treat the patient. If not, then they will refer them to the primary healthcare center. By the time patient reaches there, it's already 3 or 4 hours. Now they have to do a CT scan, MRI, they have to set up the operating procedure and all that. By the time 2 more hours are lost. So in stroke, there's a term called time is brain, which means that every second that is passing by, you are losing your brain cells more and more. With stroke, what we have done is that we have an AI algorithm, but we also have an excellent platform to connect these spoke sites to these hub sites. So now the patient is coming to this village or the primary or the secondary healthcare center where they have taken a head CT scan. AI has already identified within 30 seconds that it's a stroke patient. It will immediately send a notification to that hub site, right? And without needing a radiologist to read this, right? Because, I mean, you can lose an hour just waiting for the radiology report over there. Now the radiology can radiologist is interpreting the AI report, and they are writing their own report. But because the notification is already sent out, the tertiary care center has called up secondary care center or primary health care center and called up and asked them to send the patient, right? So the ambulance has already left. Now, because the secondary tertiary care center knows that a stroke patient is coming, within the 2 hours that the patient will arrive at the hospital, all the setup is already done. Like the OT is ready for operating and everything. So you are preserving, like, I think some of our studies show that we are saving around 40%. The time to treatment has reduced by 40%. So within 6 hours, if it was happening for 6 hours earlier, it's only happening at 60% of that time. So which is basically 3.5 hours. So 2.5 hours saved for that patient is massive. Like, I mean, in terms of
saving half their brain cells.
Yeah, basically, I mean, half of the brain cells that could have been destroyed are basically being saved. So that's on stroke. Yeah,
it's phenomenal. So Ankit, you've been using a lot of computer terminology, but also a lot of medical terminology.
Right.
Are you a doctor, or you have doctors in your team? What's your background?
So I have a computer science background from IIT Kanpur. Yeah. So I did my bachelor.
You talk like a doctor, but yeah.
Yeah, 8 years of hanging out with doctors. So my background was in data science. I did my master's thesis in basically in image recognition. So always was interested in that. Then we started Qure in 2016. Before that, I was running one more startup called Crankout. So in 2016, we started Qure in and around image processing. And I was one of the data scientists when that company started. Then we ended up built out different teams like engineering, then design, then product management. And currently, I'm heading the products team over here. Yeah, so that's more or less about me.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And you guys have, so in terms of scale, congratulations, you've raised around $65 million.
Yeah, so we closed it last week, I think. And the round is 65 million round led by Lightspeed and 361. We have added 3 investors in this round: Lightspeed, 361, and K Capital.
Nice.
So this is our Series D. Before that, we had raised funds from Novomed is a big healthcare investor from US. And then Sequoia was one of the investors in our Series B. So yeah, that has been our investment journey. But then again, we are looking at investment to really scale in the more developed markets around the world and really invest into foundational models that we have built out. But you can never have enough GPUs in an AI company, right?
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about tech a little bit.
Yeah.
So of course, since November 22, large language models and GPT have been the craze.
Right.
But you guys have been at it from 2016. So tell us the evolution of technology, how you train your model, how big is your training data, what you use, what you've tried, what didn't work. Yeah, what works.
I'll give you a sense of how data plays out, right? So when we first started, we were looking at open source data sets, right? So we started with probably a data set of 5,000 chest x-rays, and we trained something on that. We showed it to a hospital. Then they gave access to their data sets. So we got that in an anonymized form. Again, maybe 10,000, 15,000 scans. We built out an algorithm to detect 4 findings on chest x-rays. And we tested it out in that hospital on prospective data, and it was working well. We were very happy that we have cracked this and all. This is all in 2016 and early 2017. Then we go and deploy this to a second hospital, and the algorithm is not working at all. So it basically meant that, a couple of things, right? The patient population is different across those 2 hospitals, or the kind of X-ray machines that they use is very different, right? There is maybe the first hospital is using something like a 20-watt X-ray machine, depending upon the power of that. The second hospital is using a 40-watt machine or a 4-watt machine. So all these things played out, and we were we cannot individually solve all of these problems, right? So we have to just have enough representation in the data sets for all of these confounding factors that, the algorithm is able to learn those subtleties on its own. So then we really went after data, and we probably acquired 500 million scans in 2017. And now our data size is around 1 billion scans.
1 billion?
Billion, B.
Okay.
Yeah.
So almost every Indian or people with multiple scans.
So 1 billion images, all kinds with radiology reports. Out of that, I would say...
How does it to get the data? You have to...
It was, I would say, much easier in 2017. Since then, it has, see, our data needs have evolved. We don't need 1 billion images today, or we don't need 20 million chest x-rays. The needs are more subtle depending upon the algorithm, right? So for example, we can see that, say, for example, a lung nodule on the left lower region of the lung is something that we have problems detecting. So now we need data set which have a nodule in left lower lung. And that is something that you will not find in radiology reports. It's very hard to search for the data sets. And we realized it around 2021, 2022, right? When ChatGPT was sort of just being launched. And then we realized that generative AI has the potential to solve this. So we trained our generative AI models, foundational models, where now we have algorithms where we can instruct the algorithm to say that produce a chest X-ray with a nodule on left in the left lower lung, right? So we can produce a lot of synthetic data that way.
So you're using synth data now. So
yeah.
So which models do you use for generating this?
We have, I don't know the exact architecture as of today, but right from sort of ResNets to sort of detect and segment. And now the architectures have evolved toward whatever is the latest technology being used. So I'm just forgetting the name of the exact architecture, but I can come back on.
So today you not only use the images that you originally got, but now you are able to use the LLMs to generate synthetic data to say, hey, left lung, lower nodule, create an image, and then...
Yeah, so LLM is basically on large language models, right? So transformers, right? So transformers is the term I was looking for, yeah. So
all the LLMs are based on...
Yeah. So that is you are trying to learn the contextualization from text and sort of trying to predict the next word, or to give you sort of similar context. Like on imaging, it's more about sort of, can you predict the next pixel, or when you're trying to generate a video, can you predict the next frame? So for that, we always had sort of a huge amount of medical imaging data. So you have a chest X-ray. First of all, inside that chest X-ray, you have to segment out the lungs. Within that lungs, you have to find out certain abnormalities, and then you have to connect those abnormalities to understand whether it is sort of tuberculosis or not. Now you do this for 40 different things, and then you come up with a radiology report which is saying that, okay, there is a lung nodule of this and this size at this and this location, and all of these are different AI models. The size, the detection part, the location of it, and it takes a lot of training to just make an algorithm understand. This is back in 2017-18, that this part of the chest X-ray is a lung. This is left lower lung. This is sort of right lower lung. And then detecting something inside it, right? So people usually say that, how is it different from detecting a cat in an image? So detecting a nodule is actually equivalent to detecting the pupil of the eye of the cat in a normal image, right? So the problem space is very different over there. But with foundational models and generative AI, what's happening is that today, if I have to start a new product, like we started our MSK X-ray product to detect fractures a couple of years back, there I don't need to start from that level of granularity. Like the foundation model already, if you give any X-ray or any MRI scan or any CT scan to it, it is able to segment out different structures from it. All I need to tell with specific supervised sort of training data is that this kind of structure in an MRI scan is basically a vertebrae, or this kind of structure is a liver, this kind of structure is... So you need much less training data to build for a specific problem statement when you have a foundational layer that is very, very good at understanding radiology. So it's like, to give an example from the general world, I would say in 2017, we had a 1-year-old kid and we had to teach them radiology, which is much harder because you have to teach them words, English, the language, and then sort of radiology terms and all that. With foundational model, now you have basically a radiology resident, right? To teach a radiology resident about lung cancer or tuberculosis is much, much easier, requires much less data. So in that way, the field has completely changed, right? So it's a massive advantage to have something.
Does it also mean you have a lot of competition? A new guy who doesn't have to teach,
Yeah, for sure. It will create competition. But like I said, AI is still only one aspect of it. Like making AI real in a healthcare setting where I would say, typically the doctors that are using AI algorithms are not your usual 20-year-olds who are very tech savvy, right? So they wouldn't want to change things in their workflows too much.
How do you do that? So doctor mindset, the software they're using, or manually, I don't know, whatever they're doing. That's like a different challenge. Google might publish the greatest algorithm, but the doctor has to use it, right?
Yeah. So that's what that piping that is required, right, to deliver the insights of the AI algorithm on the palms of the doctor is something that is like sort of underappreciated. And not only that, once you have that workflow, we have people on ground. So we have a massive customer success team. So there is, for every 3,000 customers that we have around the world, there is one person in our customer service team that are dedicated towards them, and they will like sort of ask, like, I mean, they will be on ground trying to understand if the AI is actually being used or not, right? I mean, you have, yeah, yes, you have built out the algorithm, yes, you have built out the product, yes, you have done the integration with the hospital, but are doctors actually using it? Or is it actually like sort of helping them out? Like, for example, I mean, MOH UAE, Ministry of Health in UAE, is processing 4,000 chest x-rays per day with just 4 radiologists.
How many normally would they do without AI?
One radiologist would at max do 50 or 100 scans. So 400 to 4,000 is just like sort of a different scale
10x.
altogether. Yeah. And there, like, I mean, it was not just about AI algorithm, right? I mean, it took 1 year after the AI algorithm was there to actually make the workflow easy enough for them to like sort of work on this scale, right? So to gain that trust, to make them see where it is adding value, where it is not adding value, and then like sort of, so it's a lot of work within. And it's also the case that, I mean, different hospitals have very different workflows, right? So if is your product customizable enough to like sort of deliver or cater to these needs differently? So a radiologist using chest x-ray AI would be very different from a pulmonologist looking for new patients through early detection of lung cancer, or a TV screening program being done in India. It's very different from a TV screening program being done in Africa, for
So
example.
tell me one thing. So you are doing you've trained a bunch of data from AI, from like Indian images, and I'm sure you're getting other images as well. How well does it translate? You're now in 100 countries.
Mm-hmm.
Is there like differences?
There are certain differences, but geography is not the like sort of key difference there. But still, I mean, I will try to give you an analogy, right? So, like, if Google has to understand what to show when a person searches for a car, that's a very hard problem, right? Like, I mean, identifying cars from an image. Whereas if the Google has to learn what to show when person A searches for a car versus person B searches for a car, right? That doesn't need millions of data points, right? 10 searches from me and then what I click upon versus 10 searches from you and what you click upon. Google can like sort of fine tune the results based on those 10 searches or 100 searches. So fine tuning based on specific needs is much easier than getting. So the harder problem is identifying tuberculosis. How tuberculosis is different in India versus in Africa is an easier problem to solve. So you can take 2,000 scans, fine tune the algorithm, and like sort of that would be fine. But the more interesting problem in terms of translation is an example that I usually give is when we had the first version of the algorithm out, the accuracies on chest x-rays of a male patient were higher than chest x-rays of a female patient.
Huh.
Right. And that was very interesting for us. Then we realized that for the same disease condition, right, much lesser portion of women will actually reach the hospital, and even lesser will reach an x-ray room. So the representation inside the data set itself is basically like sort of creating that bias in the interpretation that AI gives out, right? Once we identified this problem, like, I mean, we had to like sort of procure a lot of data that was more biased towards women. Then we had to do a lot of data enhancement. And now with generative AI, like, I mean, similarly, like, I mean, say, for example, if there's a nodule, that if there is not enough representation for women in the data set, the chest x-ray of women will have a breast shadow, right? And the like sort of AI gets confused because of it, because it has not learned that subtlety in our first version of the algorithm. Since then, we have seen like QXR V2, V3, V4, and we will be launching V5 next year. That problem has gone away because you have used specific AI techniques to just solve that. Similarly, TB versus pediatric TB, right? So the chest X-ray of a child, like the X-ray machine is not changing. It's going to capture this size of an image. And for a human, it will only be a chest. But for a child, I mean, that's the entire body, right? A chest X-ray. So how do you then like sort of, is your algorithm robust enough to work on adult versus pediatric chest X-ray? Not a lot of pediatric chest X-rays are being taken. So how do you handle those? So I would say like factors like these in demography have been a much more intellectually challenging problem to solve than say geographical subtleties.
But one thing about geography, you're talking about working in Africa and remote places, right? I mean, how do you do it? The network connectivity, etc. I mean, like how
Yeah, so that's a problem that, I mean, that was hard to solve, but that has also played to our advantage because we started out from India and we expanded in Southeast Asia and Africa first. We realized very early, I think our first commercial client was in Philippines. And there we realized, I mean, I personally went to deploy our algorithm. And when I was going in this TB van, really remote, so it was around 3.5 hours from the capital city of Manila. There was not even a 3G connection back then, right? So forget cloud, like I mean, forget Wi-Fi, like I mean, you don't have like sort of enough mobile internet. And when you're dealing with images of the size of like a chest X-ray is 20 MB, a head CT scan is probably 200 MB. So and you need results in 30 seconds, which basically means that, I mean, if 10 seconds are going into like sort of just uploading and 5 seconds in downloading the results, so you have only 15 seconds to process. And some of the regions don't even have internet. So then we had to like sort of divert a lot of effort and resources in just optimizing models to run on laptops. So today, like, I mean, most of the, I mean, screening sites that have, so they work in a model where when the sites go to, when the vans go to these sites, the laptop itself has the AI models locally running. Within 30 seconds, the results are coming, patient screening is done. And when they come back to the capital city and connect back to the internet, then the like sort of data is synced to the cloud, interpretation is synced, and the program manager then can see that which sites are performing well, which sites there are patient dropouts and all that. But the engineering and the infra required to like sort of get that right, like I mean, in resource constrained settings, how do you deliver AI and AI insights, was really challenging. Why it has been an advantage for us is that now when we are like sort of last couple of years we have expanded into US, UK, Europe, all of these places, I mean, there is a lot of computing infrastructure available. Like even if you have to deploy on premise, the hospital itself has like sort of access to amazing like sort of CPUs and GPUs. Compute is not a challenge basically. And that has been like sort of a most welcome situation for us, having like sort of delivered AI.
You solved a very hard problem.
Like I mean, our competitors that have started out from Europe or US, I mean, have found it hard to like sort of solve that problem. While us coming from India was a massive advantage in that sense. Yeah.
That's a terrific India advantage. How has the reception been in UK and US?
It's been amazing. I mean, we have what now 17 FDA cleared algorithms. And for a company setting out of India to get an FDA clearance is a big deal, like which is probably one of the highest. In UK, I mean, we are the most deployed AI solution, both for our lung cancer, stroke, and a normal versus abnormal portfolio. Similarly, I would say, like, I mean, in Europe, there are sites in Netherlands that are using us for identifying lung cancer patients earlier. There are sites in Eastern Europe that are using us. Well, and then we are trying to, like, there are probably 30 sites that are using directly our solution. We have partnered with a teleradiology solution called VRAD, and VRAD is getting scans from 2,000 hospitals in US, and they are using our head city algorithm to like sort of segregate patients from stroke, non-stroke, or normal versus abnormal. So you can, like, I mean, practically say that 2,000 hospitals are indirectly using our AI in US. But I think we'll like sort of expand in US with next 2 years, given the fundraise that we have done.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about a few things. But one thing I want to know is what is next? You've done TB, lung cancer, and stroke. What awaits you? What does the next 3 years look like?
That's a good question. See, like, I mean, we want to go really deep into lung cancer. So over there, we have done chest X-rays for lung cancer. We have launched a couple of years ago, we launched a product on chest CTs. This year, we launched a project called autoresis. Again, around lung cancer, autoresis is basically post-treatment. So patients are getting their chemotherapy, radiotherapy, or whatever treatment mechanism they have, they are getting it done. And then they're taking subsequent CT scans to basically monitor whether the disease is actually regressing or progressing. And you use something called as a RECIST score to measure that. So we have automated that using our AI. And then, like, I mean, we are looking into build, like, sort of, we have NLP tools that are internal. We're making it external facing in the sense that we want to capture missed lung cancer patients from the entire US hospital setup. So there can be missed patients who are not coming for follow scans based on their reports, identifying missed lung nodules from chest X-rays, identifying missed nodules on CT scan, putting them on a lung cancer screening program, which will be managed on our own platform, where you can call a patient, send them reminders on. So really giving deep into lung cancer. On public health side, I mean, we have around 2,500 sites who are using our PV solutions. Now we are looking at what are the other issues that these sites have. The same site, same customer profile, but what are the other challenges that they have? And a couple of things that we have identified is cervical cancer and breast cancer are big issues there. So we are looking into like sort of either like sort of partnering with companies who have the algorithm but don't have the access or the platform to take their solution. Or, I mean, if it makes sense, then we can build them ourselves as well. That's there. The third angle that we are pursuing is in terms of new things is if you look at X-ray imaging, right? So 100 years ago, like the first camera and the first X-ray machine was developed within 10 years of each other. Then the first digital camera and the first digital X-ray machine was again developed within 10 years of each other around late 1980s. And the first AI camera was launched by Google in 2017. So we have 4 more years to crack the first AI digital X-ray machine. So we are pursuing that. That is
That's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, what we are doing today was a big one 8 years ago. So I think, yeah. So I mean, right from if you look at the evolution of X-ray machine, it was like printing films, then CR, which is called computing radiography. Then there was DR, which was digital radiography. Now we want to take this to IR, which is intelligent radiography. So that's a pursuit that. So there are, I mean, certain ideas that we're pursuing, but really, I mean, not at the cost of going deeper into the three disease areas that we have.
In dealing with all of this, and I've done startups almost all my life, but and of course you have, when you talk to customers, you have a kick, out of the satisfaction of doing something. But what you guys must be doing must be like just like at a different level, right? I mean, you are actually saving lives,
So that's the most satisfying part of the job, right? I mean, when we started out, all of us, I mean, one of the founding members came from Samsung Korea. The other one was working at WorldCon. We are doing data science in different fields, but the connecting factor for all of us was that we felt that, I mean, this kind of technology can be used for much more nobler purposes than like sort of getting people to click more ads, for example, right? So that was the germination of the idea, and that is what like sort of keeps us along. And then
what's a recent story that comes to mind, like of actual making a difference in the life of a customer?
So I would give a sense, right? I mean, we have very low retention in our company because people actually see the impact that they're making. So we have this huge screen in our office where anytime we make a basically flag a TB patient or a lung cancer patient or a stroke patient, there is a pop-up that comes on the screen saying that, okay, this has happened. And that basically makes it very real for the engineers or the R&D folks that are working on.
When you say low retention, you mean low churn?
No churn. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Yeah. My bad. So these people are able to see. I mean, it's like the algorithm is not about numbers, right? It's not about having accuracy of 90%, 95%, or 96%. You can really get lost into numbers, but you actually see that on the screen. And then we have a program where we send our like sort of data scientists, engineers, and designers, product managers to a site where they actually see it working. There are multiple patient stories coming our way. Like, I mean, a couple of weeks back, we had a story coming in from Chennai where a 45-year-old lady got a routine chest X-ray done for something very minor that she had come in for in the hospital. And there was a very subtle nodule behind the ribs, which is almost impossible for any person to recognize with a naked eye, right? I mean, we have a team of 50 radiologists inside Qure, and we showed it to them, and even they couldn't like sort of, if had they not known, they would not be able to catch that nodule. But AI, like QXR, like sort of flagged that patient. The doctors over there are trustworthy of QXR, so they got a CT scan done, and they found out that it was a stage 1 lung cancer after the biopsy, right? And imagine, like, I mean, the symptoms for this lady would have cropped up, and she's just 45 years old, which is not like sort of. So for this lady, like, I mean, because it was caught in stage 1 and operated successfully, at the minimum, she will have 10 to 12 years of a healthy life. Whereas in a couple of years, the cancer would have progressed to stage 3 and 4. By the time symptoms would have start like sort of showing up, and that would have been too late to like sort of have a healthy lifespan, right? So we have multiple stories like that coming up. I recently came to know about, again, a tuberculosis patient who was coughing for a couple of months, and it was hard to figure out, like, I mean, if you look at that chest X-ray, I mean, again, with naked eye, hard to comment that it's a TB patient, but QXR flagged it, and because of QXR they got a sputum test done. And similarly, I mean, in TB screening programs, right, this is a massive problem that both TB and lung cancer cause nodules, and they look somewhat similar on a chest X-ray. And it's very hard to distinguish between tuberculosis and lung cancer. So in tuberculosis screening programs, there are actually patients who have lung cancer, misdiagnosed as TB, on TB medicine for 6 months, which now AI. So we are running this integrated TB lung cancer screening program. So all the TB screening programs that we are into, we are also screening them for lung cancer, and we are able to like sort of segregate that. Okay, this patient has a nodule, but the lung cancer risk is mid or high, not low or zero. So probably like get a CT scan done for that patient after the sputum test and confirm if it's not TB, then it's lung cancer. So it's not just about being correct all the time. It's also about putting that doubt inside the doctor, right? Like, it might think it's TB, but it may not be, right? Why not take another test and just really distinguish it? So these are very like sort of, I would say, something like you're working on the latest technology, but you are also like sort of seeing the sort of impact that, and one of the key metric that we track at Qure is basically we want to touch 1 billion lives. We touched 25 million till today, and we are on a run rate of 10 million per year as of today. And hopefully we'll reach that number. But every life that we have touched, it's either we have saved life or we have like sort of at least helped improve the quality of that life by making healthcare accessible and more affordable. So,
And at this point, the algorithm is an assist, right? So there is a doctor making the final decision for the most part, except for the WHO screening thing that you talked about, where it's completely.
Yeah, so within WHO, like it's completely automated. It can be like sort of, but see, here is what happens, right? Like we have had clients where they have been using our normal versus abnormal algorithm, and after a year or so, they have developed so much confidence on that algorithm that they have actually asked us to build a feature in the app where the signature of the doctor can automatically be put on the report. So they are like, yeah, if you look at the reality in India, right? Like, most of the chest x-rays are actually being read by, not even read by radiologists. They are transferring it to radiographers, probably paying them like sort of 20 rupees, 22 rupees per x-ray. And like sort of, our AI has now, the chest x-ray AI has reached a stage where it is actually able to monitor the quality of annotations itself. So if we have to get an annotation done for finding A from a panel of 5 radiologists, we will ask them to annotate A and B. And B is something that AI is very good at. And we will measure like their quality of annotations through our AI. So 5 years ago, it was the reverse. Like we were monitoring it manually, and then like sort of AI was learning from it. But now the AI has reached a stage for certain findings that we are able to monitor the quality of radiologists through that. So yeah,
it's interesting. So your benchmark, and we were talking about this earlier. Earlier used to be how well do I compare against a radiologist?
Yeah,
What's the benchmark now? It looks like.
So we are going after like sort of the really like sort of gold standard tests over there. So for TB, like our benchmark is now sputum tests. For lung cancer, it is on chest X-ray, it is CT scans. For CT scans, it is biopsy tests. So those are the sort of ground truths that we are training with. And
when the radiologist reads the X-ray, like in a non-AI world, do two radiologists agree with each other when they read the same X-ray?
Very rarely. It depends upon the settings. Two radiologists would agree 70% of the times. And forget two radiologists, like, the same radiologist with the same set of scans, like, with a like sort of washout period of 3 to 4 months in between, would only agree 80% of the time. But it's,
you agree with their own findings 3 months.
But that's a wrong comparison to make. Like, it's there is a huge dearth of radiology expertise around the world, right? So it's never about like sort of AI versus
replacing. It's not going to replace anybody.
No. There is not just enough radiologists. Like US has one radiologist per 10,000 people, right? India has one radiologist per 100,000 people. We are deployed in a country called Lesotho, where it's just one radiologist for the entire country. So,
oh my God.
Yeah. So it's like, you're solving for something that is just not there. So there's no one to replace. And B, like I gave you the example of MOH right? Who are doing 4 radiologists are doing 4,000 scans. Radiologists are being paid for 4,000 scans, right? So AI has actually enhanced their economics and their like sort of capabilities.
It's a false.
Yeah. So typically what we say is that AI plus radiologist is much better than AI as well as the radiologist. So yeah.
Fair statement. All right, Ankit, we've been talking about, fairly interesting stuff. I have another 100 questions to ask you. Really life-changing stuff. But I want to shift gears.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do now is going to do a lightning round of 8 questions, which are going to be much more simple and generic. And
testing my neural network now.
Exactly. We're going to test your neural network. All right. Are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So the best AI tool that saves you hours every week?
Perplexity.
Perplexity. All right, great. So most impressive AI startup that you've heard of in the last 6 months that is not called Qure.ai?
I think the company that is building Claude. Anthropic, yeah.
Right. 3 years down the road, your algorithm becomes sentient, it becomes smart, human-like, and starts demanding a salary. What's your first move? Fire the algorithm.
Depends upon the revenue it is generating.
Show me the money.
Probably deserves it.
What's an AI application that seems small to you today, but you think will be massively revolutionary in 5 years?
I don't know the exact application, but close to 40% of the entire digital data that is produced is actually from healthcare. So I am expecting something massive in healthcare. Not just, I mean, right now it's imaging, but there's a lot that can be done with a lot of EMR data.
What is the most outrageous prediction about healthcare in AI that you think might come true?
AI is very, very good at taking a problem that takes a lot of time and a lot of resources and condense it into, what is ChatGPT doing? Like, I mean, I was writing emails probably in half an hour and now I'm writing in 2 minutes, right? I think in healthcare, like if you look at clinical trials, you have to like sort of design a drug, find the patients for those drugs. Then that entire process, documentation, everything takes around 3 to 5 years. 5 years ago, I couldn't predict something like ChatGPT would happen. So I would expect in 5 to 10 years, AI can design like sort of certain components of the drugs, create like sort of digital patient profiles, predict the effect of this drug on those patient profiles. I mean, I would like to see a drug trial being done within an hour, 10 years.
That's pretty outrageous.
Yeah, like I mean, really precise medicine according to just my own need and my patient profile.
And model the patient profile and then test the future medicine on the patient. So complete this sentence. The thing that everyone in AI is afraid of to admit is
nothing, probably. Yeah. I know there are worries about job losses and all that, but I was listening to Jansen's interview, NVIDIA CEO, and he makes a very good point. Like, I mean, if you look at the evolution of technology in a really long frame, right, last 10,000 years, every time like sort of something new has come up, whether it is fire or wheel or industrial revolution, then computing and now AI, people have always felt that now this technology is going to replace humans and we will like sort of chill out and work less, and a lot of people will use jobs. But in last 10,000 years, it has never happened that humans have worked less than like sort of compared to what they were doing 10 years ago, right? So I don't think like, I mean, yes, the nature of jobs is definitely going to change. Today, no matter whether you are in finance or in mechanical industries or, I mean, in pharmaceutical industries, if you don't know how to operate a computer, you cannot get like sort of a good job. And in 10 years, that can be true for AI. Like, I mean, you have to know how to use.
You don't know how to use AI.
Yeah. But I wouldn't be afraid of like sort of, I mean, not very like sort of afraid about joblessness and all that, because
don't be afraid is your message.
Yeah.
What's a stereotype about tech founders that you would reluctantly admit, maybe I say, oh, I'm also like that?
I mean, I have made mistakes where I have thought about building the product before the business use case. Typically, I mean, my greatest learning in the last 8 years has been that the technology has to follow the business needs and not the other way around. You cannot start with, okay, I will build an AI algorithm. Now let me find what is it for, right? So, yeah.
So the stereotype of tech founders is, hey, I've got the greatest algorithm and why is everybody using it? So give us a quick overview of, so this is why I got into the healthcare. This is why I do this kind of moment. Like somewhere you're genuinely inspired by something you saw. What moved you?
I remember like the first deployment that I was talking about in Philippines, right? So before that, I mean, even me as a data scientist back then, it was about numbers. Oh, I have pushed my AUC by 20 percentage points. I have done this. My sensitivity is slightly better. But once I was on that van, I went to that like sort of village. I saw the queue, right? And before that, like, I mean, somebody would come and say that, oh, your algorithm takes 3 minutes. I need it in 30 seconds. And I would be like, nobody needs a radiology report in 30 seconds, right? Like, I mean, you are anyways getting it in 2 days or 20 days. And then I saw this huge line outside that van of patients waiting for their TB screening done. It was not like the van would stay there for 8 hours. It always happened that there were more patients, but the van was not able to like sort of screen all of them. And then I realized that, I mean, from 1 minute to 30 seconds basically means that you are doubling the amount of patients that can like sort of get screened that day. And a lot of patients would have better access. So that was a revealing moment for me that, I mean, if you really need to be like sort of at the site, seeing what like sort of your product or algorithm is doing, and then only you can visualize like, I mean, what kind of effects it is having on why the technology needs to be this way or that way. Similarly, I mean, we had the first stroke patient, and like, I mean, we actually managed to interview that patient and her husband. who was very thankful about like sort of her wife being saved because of the nutrition at the right time. Those are the things. We see healthcare is hard. Like, I mean, healthcare is very hard because it moves very slowly. There's a lot of regulatory constraints around there. But then such patient stories, and now they have become more often with the scale, keep all of us moving. Yeah.
Awesome. On that note, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Even with the emergence of relatively new diseases such as HIV or COVID-19, the death toll from TB has far exceeded them both. Despite being preventable and curable, a quarter of the world's population has been infected by the TB bacteria. This is primarily because active TB presents itself with mild symptoms, which tend to get ignored. Diagnosing the virulent, multi-drug resistant TB and HIV-associated TB is complex and expensive. And program managers are faced with gaps in TB care that cascade from diagnosis to treatment completion. The gaps include inaccessibility of diagnostic tests, misdiagnosis or underdiagnosis, failing to capture patients' details accurately, lack of adherence to complete treatment plan, post-treatment relapse. Inspired by public health experts globally, we have created Qure.ai, a comprehensive AI-powered disease management platform that provides everything a program manager would need to deliver a successful program. Qure.ai allows healthcare workers to undertake door-to-door case finding with just a smartphone. The Qure.ai app helps in location tagging for door-to-door screening and building hotspot maps. It also helps in active case finding through community mass screening of symptomatic, at-risk, or vulnerable populations. Based on the symptoms, healthcare workers can follow up with a chest X-ray screening using Qure's QXR, an AI-powered tool that interprets scans in under a minute. QXR can identify, localize, and report 29 other lung abnormalities visible on chest X-rays, improving the chances of incidental findings such as COVID, lung nodules, and COPD. Apart from digital X-rays, QXR has the capability to interpret analog chest X-rays by simply taking a picture of the analog film and uploading it. Patients with abnormal chest X-rays are further referred for pathology tests. Once the lab confirms the triaged clients with cbNAAT testing or RT-PCR confirmation, the results can be entered into Qure.ai. Patients can then be counseled about their course of treatment. Qure's AI-based virtual care platform, QScout, helps healthcare workers stay connected with patients remotely and monitor medication adherence to the treatment program. QScout also reaches out to contacts of positive patients to enroll them for COVID-19 or TB screening. Qure's disease management platform, Qure.ai, can eliminate gaps in a TB program and screen for other lung conditions, improving patient overall health.